Well, hello there. I have lately seen a lot of question and answers about how to use the Poliigon textures to create materials inside KeyShot. And even Poliigon have updated the guide on how to do it. They have uploaded a few example scenes as well that you can download and check out. And I thought that maybe to help clarify stuff or maybe even add to the confusion, I would like to show again how I do how I create materials from the Poliigon textures. It's pretty much a recap of how Poliigon shows how to do it. But I will have a few extra tips and tricks that I use to adjust and fine-tune the materials. So maybe that will help you out, and let's dig into it. To have some context for this material that I'm going to create, I really like to have the scene that I'm going to use the material in, both for adjusting the size and color and whatnot. So I grabbed this scene from Gumroad. It's my own Gumroad, it's free, so you can go and grab it there. There's a link in the description below. And I'm going to show you how to create both a wood material and a metal material. And the reason why to do that is that the workflow is a bit different between metal materials and dielectric materials like wood and concrete and so forth. First of all, I want to talk about the download process. There's a few things that I want you to know. And if we go to a metal material at first, make sure that the workflow is set to specular. This is the way that KeyShot works with the maps. So make sure that this is specular. For the resolution, pick the size that you need. The only difference is that it takes up way more hard drive space, the bigger resolution you download. But again, you make sure that you can create some close-up shots as well. So I would say that if you're shot on hard drive space and you know that you're going to use this material far away, grab the small one. You can see that the file size is way lower than the big one here. But if you're not sure whether you're going to use it for close-up shots or not, I would say you should go with the big one. I did a quick experimentation to see whether the resolution had an impact on the frames per second in KeyShot or not, but I didn't find that it had. So yeah, the only downside to pick a big one is that the file size is bigger. Then we have all these maps here, and right now, because I have downloaded already, it costs me 0 credits. But if I pick another material, you can see that it takes me 5 credit, and if I uncheck some of these, it will cost me less credits. So by only checking the maps that you need, you will save yourself some credits and enable you to download more materials from this site. So we're not going to use these displacement maps at the moment because KeyShot can't work with displacement at the time being. So save yourself some credits by unchecking those. Of course, if you're going to use this material in other 3D programs or rendering software, you might as well grab them. But yeah, it's up to you. It's just to let you know that you can't use them at the moment, and it will save you some credits. The same goes for the normals 16-bit map. And we also have these two different gloss variations. So as you can see, they are pretty similar. They one have more contrast than the other, but otherwise they're pretty similar. So let's just go with the variation 2 and save ourselves a credit for the gloss variation number 1. So now we have the diffuse, the gloss, and the normals and the reflection, and that's what we need. So go ahead and grab that. For the wood texture, I'm going with this one. And again, I pick the high resolution. And we have 2 different diffuse variations. I think I'm only going to use diffuse variation number 1. I'm not going to use ambient occlusion. And yeah, the thumbnail is wrong as well. It should be a black and white image. And you can combine it with the diffuse to create some darker crevices and things like that. But I think in this map, the crevices are pretty dark already, so I'm not going to need that. Again, if you might need it at any time, go ahead and download it. Again, I uncheck displacement, and that's it for this map. We have now the diffuse, we have the gloss, we have the normals, and we have the reflection. Alright, so download that, and let's jump into KeyShot. I'll go ahead and work on the wood material, which is going to be this floor down here. So I right click and make sure that it's unlinked from anything else. So I just hit unlink material. Then I right click and open edit material graph. Cool, here we have the graph. The first thing I want to do is to change the material type to advanced, like this. This enables us to put in all the maps that we need to do. And to load in all the maps to the graph, if you download the material into a folder that you have linked to in your library, it will show up here. Otherwise, you can go to your folder where you have downloaded it, go into the map or the folder and drag over the maps that you need. So here you can see the ambient occlusion map that I talked about earlier. We're not going to use that for now. But let me pick color variation number 1. Let me pick the gloss map, the normal map, and the reflection map. And I simply drag those over to the graph like this. Boop, and they show up over here. The first thing I like to do is to just show the raw color information of the color map to be able to adjust the size of this texture. So I make sure that it's selected and I adjust the width and everything should follow like this. And then maybe I want it to run in the other direction. So I change the angle to 90 degrees. Okay, so I think something like this is a suitable size. And if we then show the raw color information of one of the other, it's the original size. But as soon as we connect them to the material, they should all follow the first one that we put in. Okay, so start by taking the color map and drag into the diffuse channel. And for the rest of the nodes here, at least this gloss and reflection map, you have to pay attention, be carefully about where they go. And I did a small rule to remember which one goes where, and that is that reflection and specular both have an E in the beginning. So like, yeah, reflection and specular, they go together. And then gloss and roughness both have an O in the beginning. So that's how I remember which one goes where. So reflection and specular and gloss and roughness. The normal map goes into the bump like this. And you're not done yet because you have to do some adjustments to each of those, each of these. So let's start with the reflection map and look what we need to do. And I'm going to connect or select the other nodes and hold down Control, right click and disable so we only see what's going on with the reflection map. And to be able to see it a bit more clear, I go to the main settings of this material and take the the diffuse color to black, because then it's easier to see reflections and so forth. And what we need to do with this reflection map is to invert it. So I right click on the connection, go to utilities and select the color inward. And you see that it makes the floor way more reflective. And if we hit C on this node, we can see that's way brighter than before we inverted it. So that's what you need to do about the reflection map. Let's enable the gloss map. And again, I disable this reflection map temporarily so you can see what's going on with the gloss map. And again, here we need to change the specular color to white so we have some reflection. And you can see that this is what the gloss map is doing at the moment. But just as with the reflection map, we need to invert it. So right click the connection, go to utilities and select color inward. And as you see, the floor becomes way more diffuse. If you want some more control over the roughness and want to fine tune it to your own liking, instead of using the color inward, you can, let's just reconnect this, right click and use the color to number node. And at first it doesn't do anything, but if you take the output from and type in 1 and take the output 2 and change to 0, you will get the same as the color inward. So that's basically what happens in here. And then you can use the output from and input to make it darker and really fine tune the contrast of this map, and also taking the output from and output to and try adjust those until you get a look that you're after. And of course, remember to hit X or C on the keyboard to take an assessment of the material itself, how it's going to look. And I think that this looks pretty good. Okay, so last thing we have to adjust is this bump map. So I disable the gloss or roughness map, and I enable this normal map. And yeah, because I have this connected before, it's correct from the beginning, but actually, well, probably when you connect it, it looks like this. The bump height is 1 and the normal map is unchecked. So these are two important things you need to do. You have to enable normal map, and you have to change the bump height to -1. And you have to do that for all the normal maps from Poliigon.com. Change the bump height to -1 because KeyShot reads them opposite of some other rendering engines. So just be aware of that. But whoops, I would say that you should always take a visual assessment for any normal map that you use and try and look and see if it goes in the right direction or not. So if we put this to a +1 again, you can see that the cracks between the floor, the wood pieces are actually going upwards, and that is why we need to have it inverted instead. So with that done, let's try and enable all these other ones again. And that is what our material looks like at the moment. And you can of course go in and fine tune both the height of the bump map and the amount of roughness, and even also the amount of reflectivity. You can in the same way add a color to number instead of the color in word, and that way really be able to fine tune your settings. For the color map, you can always right click and add in a color adjust, and that enables you to shift the hue and maybe take some saturation out of the map if you are going for something more like this. And you can adjust the brightness on this value slider and also adjust the contrast. So let's go ahead with something like this. And let's proceed with the metal material and look at how the workflow looks for this. So I right click on this lampshade, unlink the material, so I make sure that nothing else will be affected. And I go into edit material graph. Again, I start to start with changing the material type to advanced. And again, I go to my folder and load up the maps. And I take the specular map. I'm going to take the gloss map. Variation 2 was the one that I told to download. Then I'm going to use the normal, that is not 16-bit, it's the JPEG file, and then I'm going to use the specular here. I drag those into the graph, close this one down, and let's move stuff around. Okay. Here the name is pretty long, so we can't really see the name of the maps, but I can always double click on it and see it up here. So this one is the specular map, and nope, it's the color map. I'm sorry, the COL. So that will go into diffuse. This one is the reflection map, and that will go into the specular. So let's show the raw color information of that. Zoom in a bit here. Maybe right click and hit center and fit part, and I will start adjusting the size. And because we're adding this as a bump or box map, you might see some seams, maybe not. Yeah, if you have it at this size, you see a seam down here. And if you want to get rid of that, I have another tutorial showing how to use a triplanar node to do that. Link in the description below as well. But let's use a size like this. Don't worry too much about the seams at the moment. And uncheck that by hit C on the keyboard or X. And you can see at the moment looks quite strange. And that's because we have the Fresnel activated still. When you work, or if you want to use the advanced material type to create a metal material, you have to uncheck this Fresnel. And you can see right away it looks way more metal. The reflection map contains the color information, so for the metal materials you shouldn't invert the map, because that will invert the color information as well. The diffuse is used to define what is metal and what is not. So everything that is completely black is going to be completely metal, and what is not black is going to be not as shiny as metal. So this is all these rust spots. Let's add in the gloss map here, and that goes into the roughness. And now it's pretty diffuse. And again, we have to do some stuff with it. We have to invert it, and we have to add in a color adjust when we're working with the metal materials, and we have to take the value down to 0.1. So this will give us some more correct amount of blurriness of the reflection. So this is the way that Poliigon shows to do it. Instead of doing this, I tend to use only one node instead. So let me just show that. Like this, I right click on the connection and add in this color to number. And let's show the raw color information of that. Black is going to be where the reflections are perfect, and white is where the reflections are being blurred out completely. So we want the opposite of this, and that's what we did with the invert map before, but we can do the same directly inside this color to number by changing the output from to 1 and output to 0. So now we have it inverted, and then instead of using the color adjust to change the value or the brightness of the map, we can use input from, and in this case, because we have inverted it, we can use the input to make everything darker. So now we have done the same in one node that we did in 2 before. Of course, we don't have the option to say that we want it to be a value of 0.1, but instead we have a lot more control over the contrast and the brightness of this map. And if you go back to see the final material look, you can drag these and use a visual assessment and fine tune it to the visual that you are going for, and not only the exact numbers that you have seen in some tutorial or other. So this is an advice that I would give you, that don't focus too much on the actual numbers, but look at the visuals instead, and ask yourself if it's looking the way that you want it to. Otherwise, you can go in and fine tune stuff. For the last part, let's add this normal map to the bump. And again, you have to make sure to activate normal map and take the bump height to the opposite direction, or a negative direction. And if you download the template from Poliigon.com and use the template to create other materials, every time you connect a new normal map, you have to remember to go to the bump height, set it to -1, and activate this, because that is not saved. So, for example, if you drag this normal map in and use that instead, we can now see, if you double click on that, normal map is not selected and the bump height is in the wrong direction. Okay, so just be aware of that. Cool. So yeah, again, if you want to adjust the color a bit, you can go and add in a color adjust here, and again change the hue, maybe add some crazy color to it, even if you want to. I hope this helped clarify a few stuff and not add too much to the confusion, but having all these stuff in mind should enable you to create your own materials pretty efficiently, and also in a good way, by making sure that you look at how it's going to be, and not only focus on the specific numbers. Thanks for watching, and take care.